and we got the numbers gone up slowly. And when people get here, they can get here. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Zach Snyder. I am a program manager at the nonprofit Solar Oregon. And we are really excited to have you here for an event we've been prepping for a little bit, solar lessons from Pendleton, Oregon. And if you don't know where Pendleton is, you're gonna learn, I don't know why you wouldn't, but you're gonna learn all about that. And you're gonna learn all about why Pendleton really is, has a lot to tell in terms of its solar story. So I'll give a more thorough introduction in a second, but really excited to have two storytellers who are have been intimately involved in solar adoption in Pendleton in many ways. And Bob Patterson is our board president, and Susan Badger Jones is has been a Solar Oregon board member, so it's really great to have that element too. First, before I give that introduction, I want to tell you a little bit about our organization. So we are a 41-year-old nonprofit, and we seek to promote the adoption of all forms of solar energy and related forms of clean energy through education, outreach, community building, events like tours, as well as events like Solarize campaigns, which you're going to learn a little bit about if you don't know about them tonight. And we are a member-based nonprofit, and there's a lot of solar that needs to be adopted. We love to do this work. Thank you so much to everybody who is a member and who is supporting us. And if you are not a member, please consider becoming one today. You can go to our website, www.solaroregon.org, and do that there. If you want to just donate, we greatly appreciate that too. And this link, bit.ly/solar-donate, it might be donate to SO, but whatever Ari drops in the chat there is going to be our current donation link. And greatly appreciate that. Also, make sure to follow us on social media. We're relatively active. You can find us on all the major platforms at Solar Oregon. Also, thank you so much to Energy Trust of Oregon. They have also been around for a number of years. They're an independent nonprofit, and they do a ton of work around the state, including providing incentives that help people gain access to clean energy, energy efficiency, and a host of other things that improve our relationship to energy in the state. And they are supporting this event. And they also support other events that Solar Oregon produces. So big thanks there. So we're here today to celebrate Pendleton in particular. There are a lot of rural communities who have made great strides in terms of solar adoption and clean energy adoption. Excuse me 1 second. There we go. It's a rice cooker. But Pendleton really has an incredible solar story to tell. It was an early solar adopter in many ways, and now is the community with the highest per capita solar adoption in the state. So I am not going to give away too much. I'd like to introduce both of our panelists. Bob Patterson has been a public works director for the city of, he is the public works director for city of Pendleton. He's responsible for administrative and leadership oversight in directing work assignments, construction and maintenance efforts, and overall completion of projects. The public works department consists of administration and fleet division, sewer division, streets division, and water division for a total of 35 employees. The annual operating budget for the department is just over 17 million annually, with over 20 million in capital projects slated for the current fiscal year. Bob is hyper prolific, and Bob was the recipient of the Top 10 Leader of the Year award for the National American Public Works Association in 2016. Again, our current board president, and couldn't be happier to have him here. And Susan Badger Jones, while as former Eastern Oregon outreach manager for Energy Trust of Oregon, Susan helped the city of Pendleton implement a highly successful Solarize campaign, putting more than 388 kilowatts of solar on roofs of local homes and businesses. She has also worked with successful Solarize campaigns in Union and Wallowa counties, coordinated numerous green and solar home tours, and served on Solar Oregon board in the past. She now lives in La Grande and consults on energy planning for Wallowa County. Please give a warm welcome, and I'm going to hand it off to you guys. And also just want to say that Susan, the person performing the role that you held at that point, is Karen Appler. She's on the line, so really glad to have Karen here. And yeah, Bob, take it away, share your screen.
All right, glad to have everybody participating in this presentation. Pendleton's done more than solar. This list shows that solar was really the incentive that got us to look at other programs, and I've got them noted. We're tonight going to concentrate on the highlighted projects, our public works solar system projects, Solarize Pendleton itself, other solar system projects that have occurred since our Solarize program ended, and then just briefly touch on Weatherize program. It's something that we're still doing and coordinating with Energy Trust of Oregon. So solar systems, just a high level look. There's our water filtration plant. It was our first project. We'll get into more details. The middle photo shows the ground mount solar tracking array down at our wastewater treatment and resource recovery facility. And then we've started on residential homes within our community. For the water filtration plant, we were actually approached by Honeywell back in the mid 2006 year. And we ended up completing the project in 2007. That project is, again, 100 kilowatt static roof mount system. We have a power purchase agreement with Honeywell, and we basically have no cost to them for use of the building, and we purchased the power for less than market rate. At that time, I just want to point out in this photo, I'm not going to read through everything, but without incentives, the payback would have been 140 years for the 1.2 million total project cost. It averaged $12 per watt installed for this particular project. So we've come a long way in bringing those costs down. The following year, we did in 2008, we commissioned and completed a ground mount tracking system that was 200 kilowatts. And same thing, power purchase agreement with Honeywell. We have a no cost lease to the land. We purchase the power at less than market rate. And that total system ran about 2.3 million. And without incentives, the payback was about the same as the water filtration plant, a little longer, but it came in at $11.50 a watt installed. So those were the two big projects that led to our Solarize Pendleton campaign. And I'm going to briefly give the high level and turn it over to Susan to talk about the details of from her perspective for Energy Trust. To initialize Solar Pendleton, we really provided a zero interest loan incentive of $9,000. And we used our wastewater rate stabilization fund. We had a pot of money we couldn't do anything with. It was a reserve fund for our wastewater loan, and we could borrow against it. So we utilized that as really the tool to provide us the ability to move forward. We looked at bulk purchasing power by going with one installer across the city. We personally made it a priority for Oregon-made products. In some of the aspects, the roof must have greater than 20-year life, and the roof must be structurally sound. And as I recalled today and talking to Zach earlier, there's a prescriptive path that allows, if your roof meets a certain design, you can move forward without having that roof assessed. Well, that started with our Solarize campaign. We're the ones that worked with the State Building Codes Division to generate that prescriptive path for all the campaigns that followed. So, Susan?
Yeah, as you can already see, the city of Pendleton, and especially with Bob, has been a leader when it comes to early adoption of renewables and other exciting things that actually aren't in this presentation. But after their experience with the municipal solar projects, they decided it was time to roll it out, create a pathway for local folks to put it on their homes and even their businesses. Now, what you have to remember was they started talking about this in about 2009. And so solar was really expensive. There was practically no solar on any residential or business rooftop in the city of Pendleton. There was no local solar contractor in Pendleton. Indeed, there was one very small solar contractor in all of Eastern Oregon. So they decided to tap into the fairly new Solarize Campaign offering of Solar Oregon. So there's a collaboration of Solar Oregon, Oregon Department of Energy, and Energy Trust. And the idea was to, for some organizing entity, in this case, the city of Pendleton or a neighborhood association or a nonprofit, to issue an RFP, vet and select a contractor who would then make a bulk buy price available to local residents. In return, part of the reason solar was expensive in those days was that nobody understood it. And so contractors spent a lot of money on marketing and education and shooting sites and that sort of thing. So the city took over the role of marketing that and informing residents. They did it with a series of workshops, information on a website, face-to-face at farmers markets, and they really did an extraordinary job. So it was a delight. That was my first experience with Solarize, and I really learned a lot working with the city of Pendleton. Bob?
Okay, thank you. There are some questions coming in. Some of those will be answered throughout the presentation. At the end, we will focus our time. One of them's on power purchase agreement, and I'll be stating some more of those that we've completed, so we can get into the details during the Q&A at the end of the session. So our background on Solarize, as Susan mentioned, we marketed basically on the success of our public works facilities to the community at large. One of the key components was our AmeriCorps through the University of Oregon. We had what's called a Rural Assistance for Rural Environment participant, or RARE participant. And Lee Jorgensen, who served here late 2009 through mid 2010, was really the one who put the whole concept of Solarize together. And then it was really us following through, and we had 4 additional solar or RARE participants that followed Lee that kept this program running on our behalf through their year with the city. Yeah, go ahead, Susan.
I just chime in here. This was my introduction to RARE, and I subsequently have worked with many RAREs. Energy Trust has incorporated RARE placement into some of their programs, their energy planning. And, you know, I just can't speak highly enough of this program if you're in need of a really savvy young person to work on a project.
Yeah, and our year 1 to 2 RARE participant is now a board member of Oregon Energy Trust, and that's Lindsay Hardy. So our goals with Solarize were really to help residents in the greater Pendleton area go through solar, through net metering and feed-in tariff options. So we had a lot of educational campaigns and outreach, promote economic development through renewable energy. A key is always developing partnerships, and Susan mentioned those earlier in starting the Solarize campaign. So we're on good footing already with those partners, and then provide that foundation for beginning residential energy efficiency and sustainability programs, which will lead to the Weatherize program we'll talk about at the end. Our program details, logistics were a big part, lots of education and outreach and developing contractor partnerships. Our subs were local contractors to the prime contractor that was selected through our process. Financial, the city played a big role in providing a bridging loan to help with construction. Not everybody has that much money in their back pocket to front the upfront cost. So the bridging loan was a way to help folks get into the Solarize program.
And
yeah, go ahead, Susan.
Well, if I can just jump in on that bridge loan. So it was enough, it covered the value of the Energy Trust incentives and the federal tax credit. So, you know, that was money they didn't have to come up with because they knew they were going to get it back fairly quickly. But the other thing it did is it inspired confidence in local residents. They said, my gosh, if the city is going to lend money on this, it must be, it's not flaky. So another example of city leadership.
Yeah, thank you, Susan. And one of the areas for transparency is a lot of city employees having set up this program and being involved. We wanted to participate. Well, one of our city councilors, who's no longer with us, but at the time he wanted transparency. So we created a lottery, and we actually had Councilmember Brinney draw the names. So we had people sign up for the program, but you still had to be assessed. Is it the right thing for your location? And be vetted to participate in the program. So we drew names from the hat, and all the city employees were in there. And that created a checklist of names to go through to participate. So not everybody, when they signed up, actually qualified to be in the program, just due to various factors. The installer, we did a request for proposal and a contractor selection. We received 4 proposals. We had bulk pricing as part of the criteria in 50 kilowatt increments. And we'll get into what we gained in the first year. So the first 50 kilowatts was a higher price per watt installed, and then it dropped for each additional 50 kilowatts. So we got bulk purchasing credit to the community by having more people participate. For Solarize, there's my house. I'm standing out in front of my 2,400 watts of panels installed on my roof. And I have a 2,000 watt inverter. We had 56 homes participate in that first year. Our city role we talked about was that $9,000 loan at 0 interest. We had 39 homes participate in the actual loan program. And with that, we did request, in case payments couldn't be made, a voluntary lien against their property. So the city would get reimbursed those funds and be solid that way. There was also a feed-in tariff program, and the folks that went after feed-in tariff, a lot of those had enough capital. They really went big with their solar installs, and they get paid for power produced. Net metering is you get a credit against the power you use and that you produce with the solar system to lower your utility bill. Our overall installations were completed in 2010. Our partners, Live Light Energy was our contractor. Solar World is who we went with for the manufacture of the solar panels. And then Solar Oregon and Energy Trust of Oregon were 2 of our main partners. The $9,000 loan payment was really based on the way tax credits worked. So the federal tax credit, I'll go through, the federal tax credit was 30% after energy trust incentives. Energy trust incentives at that time was $1.50 per watt installed. And then there was the residential energy tax credit with the state of Oregon. And that was $6,000, but $1,500 per year for 4 years. So most of the systems, that 30% was about $3,000. So we structured our loan to match. So we got $3,000 back plus $1,500, or half of the loan in the first May following the installation, and then $1,500 a year for 3 years to complete the payback based on your tax credit. So the program worked extremely well for us. At that time, the payback was about 5 years on an installed system. In that first year with that bulk purchasing, we were able to install for $6.39 per watt, and we did 135 kilowatts. The second year, Live Light was still our contractor. We just continued the program, took more names and looked at more installations. But that year there was this brief, the commercial side of the incentive program was ending the following year. So we took advantage. We had interested commercial facilities, and we ended up taking our state revolving fund. We had wastewater projects underway. We delayed some wastewater projects and leveraged against that loan to actually help incentivize and provide additional loans to the community. So I have a bunch of numbers up there for total loans, but the RETC, the residential energy tax credit, changed that year, and it went to $2.10 per watt up to a maximum of $6. And when we look back, the payback was closer to 9.5 years for each system involved. Still very worth doing the program and had great participation.
And then something else we saw in year 2 is, I mentioned that we had a flight of workshops that we made available to, when they were 1-hour workshops on everything to do with solar, what it is, the difference between solar and thermal, how the financing works, what a system looks like, what the components are, a chance for Q&A with the contractor. But we also offered workshops on weatherization and energy efficiency, because we wanted people with limited dollars to understand where they could get the biggest bang for that buck. And at that time, it was efficiency. And so, the people participated in PV the first year. We didn't see much weatherization, but people who installed PV in the first year, we saw them begin to circle back and do insulation or air sealing or upgrading windows in year 2. And so what was happening is suddenly they had generation on their roof and they had a meter in their utility room or garage, and they'd look at that and they'd say, well, I'm producing this much, but I'm using this much. How can I lower my demand? And at that point, they came back and said, oh, I could insulate, I could do, those kinds of things. So, there was this wonderful momentum that began to roll down the road.
Yes. On the commercial side, that was a new program for us, and 90% of the projects were paid through by incentives. The way the city did the loan, we capped it at $125,000 per installation, but the owner received 56% of incentives paid back through tax credit the following May. So we structured that the loan would be for 50% of the total project cost. That was huge for the commercial businesses to participate as a bridging loan. So that year we had 46 homes participate. Of those, 25 did the residential loans through us. And then we had the 4 businesses participate, and all 4 businesses utilized that 50% of project cost loan, and the city was paid back in full the following May. And we did 103 kilowatts installed that year residentially, and 57 kilowatts on 4 commercial businesses. The third year was kind of our last year, and we started a new phase in that Live Light dissolved, and it really wasn't for what they were doing here in Pendleton. They were a great contractor. They expanded and went west, and they overextended themselves. And so we changed the program to open it to Energy Trust of Oregon trade allies, solar trade allies, and you could use any approved Energy Trust trade ally to do your installation. The Energy Trust incentive went down to $1.25 per watt, and there was just a small pool of money left for Pacific Power customers of $500,000. The RETSI was still capped at $6,000 through the state, the residential energy tax credit, but the business energy tax credit, again, as I mentioned earlier, was no longer available. So commercially, it was a little different for commercial businesses to proceed. We did have 2 businesses move forward with loans and 5 residential loans. So 6 homes participated in 2 businesses that year. So our activities since 2012, that was more or less when the Solarize program came to an end for the city of Pendleton. But we continued to offer the $9,000 bridging loan at 0 interest, and commercially at $75,000, up to $75,000 at 0 interest. We had some participation with a 50 kilowatt static roof mount system in 2014. We did some more workshops trying to bring contractors into the area to, again, say, hey, these guys are here, they want to do solar, keep them going. We did almost 4 kilowatts in residential installations, and continued that community outreach, working with Solar Oregon, Energy Trust of Oregon, the Weatherize, the home audits, really focused with our rare participants taking the lead. And at that time, Oregon Energy Trust was paying 25% of the cost. So they were dedicated to help Energy Trust of Oregon out in our region with these programs.
Yeah, this is about the time that solar installations was transitioning from early adopter, rare bird, have you seen it kind of thing to, oh yeah, well, you know, it's on my neighbor's roof. I see it there. I know it works. So it was transitioning to kind of business as usual. So, which was what the city had wanted to do.
Yeah, and in 2015, we had two homes participate. Here you can see the 4 kilowatt roof mount installation. Happens to be our old city planner's house at the time. In 2015, the Pendleton Army Aviation Facility had funding. They did 150 kilowatt installation. They're located up at the Pendleton Airport. And they did 48 kilowatts on a parking structure and 102 kilowatts on the ground mount that you see in the photo to the right. That system was commissioned in July of 15. A celebratory event was held a year later in August of 16. Senator Wyden attended that dedication ceremony. And you have anything you want to weigh in on this one, Susan?
Yeah, just that this was a pretty big deal because it was part of the military dipping their toe into energy resilience at their facilities. And so, you know, it was kind of it embodied several kinds of firsts for that type of project. So big deal.
Along that way, we actually had a power provider that wanted to invest in solar and push that power to Pacific Power directly. So we entered into a lease agreement on 65 acres of land that's owned at the bottom of Airport Hill, next to exit 207 on Interstate 84. And the site was completed an environmental study. They were sizing a 6 to 7 megawatt facility approved at the Buckaroo substation located across the way, across Airport Road. With that, the big issue is the substation didn't just have a 6 or 7 megawatt transformer available. So they have to order that, and that they commenced that and started that process. They were intending to have construction 2 years later in mid to late 2017, but they did not. And I'll circle back to that as to when that project was finished. Along that line, about 2016, the state of Oregon required 1.5% of new buildings have a green energy footprint through their 1.5% green energy program. So public entities now in the state have to spend, if it's over $5 million for that project, that building, have to spend it on green energy. And so this slide kind of hits the highlights. And my next few slides will show projects we've done here in the city that are part of this green energy program for public facilities. The school district went and got a bond approved with the citizens of this community in their district and renovated one of the older schools in town. And it's now the Pendleton Early Learning Center, or PELC as we call it locally. So in 2015, they commissioned that project and completed it as a renovation construction of an existing building. 63 kilowatts installed.
That was a fabulous project because it came really early, and because of Eastern Oregon's size, you know, there were not a lot of big projects happening, or projects big enough that met this 1.5%. So this picture, often with a bunch of school children playing out in front, was kind of the Eastern Oregon 1.5% poster child for a long time. So but it's a wonderful project.
Yeah, and the school district built 2 new schools and demolished 2 old schools, and that's the next 2 slides. So additional investment was made at Sherwood School and Washington schools. Both have the same exact building footprint, so they have the same size solar system, 56 kilowatt. and there's Washington School.
The two
And
schools
then-
are identical.
What, Susan?
The two schools are basically identical. They saved on a whole bunch of design costs by doing it that way.
Yes, they did, which benefited the community and the district. In 2016 to 2018, our facilities manager on the heels of all this solar development worked directly with Sunthirst, which is owned out of Hermiston, and they do basically commercial facilities. So again, we did a power purchase agreement, but with this particular agreement, we own these facilities after 15 years. So we're kind of, we did 5 rooftop solar systems, each at 10 kilowatts. And the forecasted savings is about $4,900 annually. And we're using that to leverage over the 15 years to pay back the system. And then after that, we net the 490 annual at each facility. So our 4,900 total. So that was a neat program. And the thing is, you don't really see these because they're on flat roofs around town. So these solar arrays are hidden away from the general public view. Now I'll circle back to Cypress Creek in that airport 6 megawatt facility, and Norwest Energy is the owner of this solar array. They're a subsidiary of Cypress Creek Renewables. So they started construction after getting that transformer. It took almost 3 full years for that transformer to make it over and be installed at the substation for this project. Began work in April of 2018, finished in November of 2018, total 6 megawatts. The cost estimate was about 16.8 million. For that cost, and for 6 megawatts of power, that's about $2.80 per watt installed. I do note there's a solar glare seasonal. So if you're traveling to Pendleton from the west and you enter town and you're going to get ready to drop into Pendleton, there's a big yellow placard along the freeway that says solar glare ahead. And that sign is up year round, but I will tell you the solar glare occurs for about 4 weeks of the year, and it occurs between the hours of 6:45 to 7:30 a.m. between mid-June and mid-July. That information isn't on the sign, but it grabs your attention. And as you drop into town, all of a sudden the 6 megawatt solar array stretches out in front of your view. So you do know where that solar glare is going to be generated from, but it's very short-lived to the actual driver.
Yeah, I love that project. I have that project too, because it's just as you come down, drop down towards Pendleton, there's the Pendleton letter box statue, and then all this solar, it just says Solar City, really. So.
Yeah, and we count it towards our solar per capita because it is inside the city limits of Pendleton. And then in 2018-19, we issued a bond to build a fire station. And with that, we're under the 1.5% green energy program. So we built a 33 kilowatt roof mount system at the fire station with the cost of just below $68,000. Same, we negotiated a power purchase agreement with the installer, Sunthirst, and we will own the system after 15 years and then reap the benefit of the reduction in energy cost. So overall, solar in Pendleton, we've installed to date in our public works facilities and other city facilities, 383 kilowatts. Solarize residential was 262, and Solarize commercial was 126 for a total of 388 under the Solarize program. Then we have that big 6 megawatt facility and a whole bunch of others, mostly under the public green energy program. So we're sitting right now at over 7 megawatts DC of solar power installed in Pendleton. So under the Solarize program, that's 23 watts per capita. And then if we look at the total inside the city that's installed, we're at 423 watts per capita, which leads to us calling ourselves the most solar per capita in the state of Oregon. So where does that take us? Oregon tax credit was discontinued in 2017. And in putting this presentation together, I've been working a lot with Zach and Susan and going through Energy Trust and Oregon Department of Energy and trying to really understand the incentives that are ahead of us. And it's an exciting 2 years that's ahead of us. Energy Trust of Oregon, they have a cash incentive program. And if you're a Pacific Power and Light customer on this side or PG&E on the other side, you can see it's $1,200 or $900. And then there's a program that's income qualified households based on your household size. That varies, but the maximum is 4,200 watts in Pacific Power's area and $8,400 in PG&E's. And then there's community solar. And this is one that right now you can subscribe. It's under the Public Utility Commission for the rules. You subscribe to a portion of a community solar project, and it's shared with other customers. So you get a little tax credit on your utility bill if you participate. And the city of Pendleton, as of today, we're signing an agreement to participate in one of these programs for our enterprise funds. Federal tax credit is still available, but it's starting to trickle down. This year and next year, there's 26% still available, residential and commercial, in a federal tax credit. In 2023, it drops to 22% for both residential and commercial. And then it zeroes out for residential and it drops to 10% for commercial in 2024. I don't know what's in store beyond. And Congress can always change and put more money back into that program.
So on this slide, and then other times, Bob has talked about sort of the dollars up front, the cost, the incentives, the tax credits, but there are dollars on the end side, on the going forward side. And I just want to pull some Energy Trust numbers. And so I'm talking about numbers from 2002 through 2019. So there are a couple of years that aren't in there. But because renewable energy projects and solar and energy efficiency projects like Weatherize that we're going to talk about, they keep dollars local. And since 2002, projects incentivized by Energy Trust in the city of Pendleton have saved Pendleton residents and business owners more than $16.4 million on their utility bills. So this is natural gas and also electric. And so that's $16.4 million that Amy and Joe down the corner or the business next block have to spend on groceries and school stuff and whatever in the local community. And so this just continues to increase over time because solar and weatherization kinds of and energy efficiency are enduring projects. They don't just go away next week. So they're really valuable in terms of energizing local economy. Back to you, Bob.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Another area that we're seeing some incredible uplift is solar rebates and grants. Oregon Department of Energy was just funded $10 million in July of 2021, and they're currently in the rulemaking process at present to offer a solar storage and storage rebate program. This goes directly to the installer. There's up to 40% of net costs for non-low or moderate income customers. And this is after Oregon Energy Trust incentives. And then 60% for low or moderate income customers. And then up to 50% for a low income service provider. So the numbers here show what it's capped at residentially, 5,000 on solar, 2,500 on battery storage. So we're now looking at those combinations. The beauty here is you don't have to be a Pacific Power customer and you don't have to be a Portland General Electric customer. This is statewide. So this can be co-ops, other programs in this particular project. You have to use an Oregon Department of Energy approved contractor, and they receive that rebate from ODOE. With that, you want to I recommend anybody listening, if you're interested in solar right now for residential, go to the Department of Energy site and look up, it's noted up above in this slide. Also go to Oregon Energy Trust and find a trade ally with Energy Trust and a Department of Energy approved contractor that are the same, and reach out to them and say, you want to participate. Please put me in the queue to be assessed and move forward. I'm still doing more research on this, but these are the incentives, rebates, and grants that are currently available for this year and next. And it's almost first come, first get. Also with Oregon Department of Energy, there's the Community Renewable Energy Grant Program, which is a little different than the community solar. This one's also concentrating on both solar and storage. Within that, this one's open to tribes, public bodies, and consumer-owned utilities. So this gets away from $50 million pot, away from PG&E and Pacific Power. So again, that one's applications will start this spring. So this is one that the city of Pendleton is going to start taking a hard look at for an application. Community solar local sites right now, there's 4 that are in the queue. Tutawilla site, which is located out by exit 216 along the interstate, 4 miles east of Pendleton. That's one we're signing the paperwork to participate in that and be an incremental participant, about $2,900 in savings over 20 years. So it's not a huge amount per year, but again, it's a small amount that will offset our enterprise fund costs, our water and sewer. The installer also has Pilot Rock sites. He's looking at 7.2 megawatts. These are already in the queue and approved. And then we have 2 sites here in Pendleton that he's already gone through the city planning process and are permitted to install. He's got the property owners on board. He's just waiting to see where he is in the queue to get these funded. So with that, turn this one over, Susan. Weatherize. So
great. And what I would say about the community solar projects are, I mean, I live in LeGrand. I live in a house that I've got too many trees. I can't put solar on my roof, but I could buy into one of these community solar projects. Or say I was a renter and I said, I'm going to be living here for a while, but I'm a renter. I can't put solar on my roof. To buy into these projects is a way to sort of do your part and also to benefit by that financial commitment. So, well, you've heard about the success of Pendleton Solarize. What the Weatherize campaign did was really piggyback onto that heightened awareness of energy and build on that momentum by introducing a series of workshops and public information and outreach that talked about the comfort and financial savings related to insulation and air sealing and upgrading windows and having energy assessments of your home and business. And we just built on that momentum and used the same basic mechanism that we had done to publicize Solarize. And it also helped us establish a local network of weatherization contractors. We had talked with a lot of contractors in the area, tried to get them enrolled as official trade allies for Energy Trust. And, they always had some reason not to do it. And then when they saw the success of Solarize and we launched this, they were interested and signed up and, did the orientation workshop. So,
yeah, and I believe we had more people participate in Weatherize, having the home energy audits, and we had contractors come in and seal the ductwork that was in the crawl space. That was a free incentive program on heating efficiency. And then the home energy audit, my favorite story is my old boss in his house. He had a huge heat sink And it turns out, if you remember most homes, you had a coal or an oil burning furnace and you had a big central return. Well, in this case, that return went down to the ducting, but they never sealed off when they removed it and did the flooring above his mechanical room. So he had this huge area in his mechanical room that was just circulating air and pulling it in. And he always wondered why his house never seemed to get warm. Well, that energy audit found that it was not visible standing there unless somebody got on a ladder and put their hand up there. But through that energy audit, it detected that, and all of a sudden his house is getting warm when he's running the heat. So it's those little things like that that make having that energy audit worthwhile.
Yeah, we actually piloted a duct inspection and sealing program, a free program in the city of Pendleton. And the timing was, right at the same time, and that was part of the kind of experience that homeowners had, and you can we no longer do on-site home energy reviews, but you can do a really great one online at Energy Trust, and you don't have to be a customer of the investor-owned utilities. I mean, I'm a co-op customer and I can use it. So I recommend that home energy audit at the energytrust.org website. And, I think that's it. There are certainly people could continue to enjoy the benefits of this. That's part of that $16.4 million people aren't writing checks to the utilities for.
Yep. So my quick summary is, to do something of this nature, it just starts with the willingness. And once you get that willingness going, it takes the community effort to follow through. And then with that, we have to develop these partnerships like Solar Oregon and the Energy Trust of Oregon. And then the leadership's a key. You've got to have leadership. Once that's established, all of that starts to create momentum, and that momentum then turns into energy. And we're trying to do energy efficiencies. Altogether, they created success in our community. And as we noted throughout this presentation, that success grew into other facets of energy efficiency considerations. It created a mindset for our community about energy efficiency. And to this day, our staff is still working on a streetlight LED conversion. We're finally getting there, have the council support. This next summer, all of our streetlights will be converted from high pressure sodium to LED. That's been 10 years in the making, unfortunately, but we've applied that to all of our public facilities, looking at lighting conversions, and we just continue to look where we can at energy efficiencies that make sense. And pretty much our city councils adopted the philosophy: if you can show a payback of 10 years or less, thumbs up, we're going. We're making it happen. So that's been our philosophy for success. So with that, I guess, Zach, there's 6 questions. There might be more. Here's information to the attendees for contacts and resource website information. And again, Karen Appler is now the Eastern Oregon Outreach Manager, and her contact information and email are there also. So
Yeah,
Zach, do you want to take us through the questions?
And before that, Karen is an excellent resource. She's based in Pendleton. She's lived there a long time. And before becoming to this outreach position, she worked in our residential program. So really knows about efficiency and new home construction and that sort of thing. So call her.
Great, Bob and Susan, thank you so much. And Bob, if you want to, actually, you can leave this up for a second, just so people can see that contact info. Yeah, so we are going to have Q&A here, and we've got 10 minutes to do that. I am going to launch a poll. We have just a little post-event survey. Please feel free to stick around, obviously, but if you could just fill this out, we would love to get your feedback on this event. And so that's up on your screen. And we have a number of questions in the Q&A box. If you have a question that you haven't put in there and you want to ask it, please put it in the Q&A box. I'll also look at the chat, but I'll look at the Q&A box first. So if it's all right, I want to just ask a quick question from myself, which is, Bob and Susan, This, by the way, this is an awesome overview. Thank you for sharing all these stories. What was the role of, I guess, like individuals? Like you're talking about building up momentum and building up energy. And what did that look like from in those initial decision-making processes, maybe along the way, not even just at the very beginning, but what was the role of individuals and like, how did that evolve into a group dynamic in the city?
Good question, Zach. I'll go first, I guess. For the city, it really started with Lee Jorgensen, who has an architect's degree, but was interested in planning and joined the city as a rare participant. He kind of brought up this idea. He was seeing other solarized projects starting to launch. He saw that we did the water and wastewater facilities, and he approached the city manager, who was a supervisor, about, hey, what about Solarize here? And then that really engaged us to start having a discussion. Yeah, everybody knew about what we did at these public facilities. What can we do to help our citizens engage in solar? And with the incentives that were out there, it was a way of, our biggest thing was group discussion and bringing our staff together to talk about funding this in a way that makes sense and can help our citizens. And that's where we came up with looking at the tax credits and then giving that bridging loan. From there, once we had that knocked down, then the rest was turning it over to my staff, my department, and putting together the RFP and request for proposals and getting that out the door. And once that momentum really carried and the educational, getting people to sign up for the program and understand what we were trying to do. And as Susan mentioned earlier, that $9,000 bridging loan, 0 interest, the city's commitment to this, that spoke volumes. So it helped grow the program. And I know Jean and Mary Hallman are on. I saw their names earlier. They participated. Again, neat program. And then there's another, well, we'll get to the questions here in a bit, but that's really how the momentum started.
Yeah, and there was, it was a collaboration with, again, Solar Oregon Energy Trust and Department of Energy, Oregon Department of Energy had created a little manual how to do a Solarize campaign. And I think the first ones actually were launched in some Portland neighborhoods that, you know, the neighborhood associations are quite strong in some of the Portland areas. And, you know, 10 or 15 people said, well, let's band together and do some kind of bulk buy thing. And, you know, that was part of the impetus for creating that. But Lee Jorgensen was key. I went in to see them. Solar Energy Trust said, go see Pendleton about a Solarize campaign. And I'd never worked on one. And I said, well, Lee, holding my breath, do you have some kind of timeline in mind? And he just rolled out this wonderful Gantt chart. And I said, oh yes, we can work with you. So yeah, a lot of credit to that intern.
That's great. All right, so we do have a number of questions here, and we're going to try to get to all of them. Because some of them might be clarification questions, so we'll just more or less go through in order. First question is, can I get help from Solarize Pendleton for a ground mount system? So that's I think a question about Solarize Pendleton and about ground mount systems.
Yeah, so right now, Solarize, as we had it 10 years ago, doesn't exist today. It's really what can the installer do for you in ground mount systems. When we did Solarize, we had several that were off the roof structure on a carport or ground mount. So we do have examples, and that can be done and take advantage of the incentives that are out there. But right now, you really need to look at what Energy Trust offers through their trade allies and what Department of Energy offers through their approved contractor list and visit with them.
You can go to the Energy Trust website and find solar contractors, Energy Trust approved solar contractors who work in the Pendleton area.
Yeah, both sites have that. And again, find one that is approved in both and you're gold. I just wish I spent the time to look that up for folks.
And someone also asked about power purchase agreement. I think you gave a little detail, but I think that maybe just like an overview of high level overview of what is a power purchase agreement.
So a power purchase agreement is really where somebody owns the solar array, they're producing power from it, and they want to sell that power. In our particular agreement, we purchased the power from Honeywell or from Sunthirst as our two power purchase agreements. And then we negotiated with them in creating that power purchase agreement that we would pay a rate to them for power produced that's less than the utility. So there was a net savings for us to buy it from them because their power goes out onto the system through that power purchase agreement. It was not a net metering type agreement where it's a credit against power used. So they are a producer of power in this instance and give it to Pacific Power and they get paid for that. So we wanted to pay less. So anyway, that's kind of the high level overview on the power purchase agreement.
Great. Another question here. What are the residential battery options? And also the question states Tesla Powerwalls are terribly expensive. And yeah, as much as you want to, I'm also happy to give a little bit from.
Yeah, Zach, this one's a good one for you. I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, there are several great battery options for home and businesses. Batteries are expensive, and there are some differences between batteries, both in terms of price and capacity slightly. Talk to a solar contractor. Solar contractors are adopting, they are the battery installers. Even if you just want a battery, you can talk to a solar contractor, go to an Energy Trust trade ally, or if you're in co-op territory, find a reputable contractor in your area. And the state rebate that Bob went over, the solar and storage rebate, that is the storage part of that is batteries, and that's that $2,500. So that is a nice little incentive. Obviously, when you're looking at something that installed costs, I can't give you an exact quote, but it might be a little bit upwards of 10,000, including labor for a Tesla Powerwall, even though the Powerwall itself is only about 6,000. 2,500 makes a difference, but it's not going to make it free, obviously. So, but there are great options, and it is important because resilience is important. So, talk to a contractor if you want to learn more. And I'm
wondering if Karen has anything to say on that topic. Combined solar storage.
Yeah, so
I don't know if she can mic in.
She can't mic in unless I don't think she can mic in. I don't think I can do that. But
okay, folks might check the Energy Trust of Oregon website about combined solar storage incentives.
Yeah, that'll be another good resource. So another question here: what happened in 2012 that the Solarize program ended? What was the kind of evolution there?
Again, the commercial incentive was going away, and the residential incentive was changing with that. So we had a drop in participation on the heels of the changes in incentives. The payback was no longer less than 10 years. It stretched that payback out beyond 10 years. And when we were explaining that to folks on the level of participation, that was really the sweet point of being 10 years or less. Again, when you own a home and you're looking at that investment in your home, you got to think that I'll live there longer than 10 years to take full advantage. If that advantage goes out to 15 years, and again, my daughter did a assessment based on a year ago, the payback would be about 18 years based on incentives a year ago. It's really hard to make that play, to make that investment if you don't reap the entire benefit. So that was really where the decision started to tail off on our Solarize campaign.
Well, and the other thing is access to solar had normalized, probably between 2009 and I think 2012, the hard costs of solar, the panels, the inverters, all that stuff dropped by 35 to 40%. Suddenly you didn't need, you could just go out and do it. And so it didn't need that solarized infrastructure to, to make it happen.
Yeah, and our big change in 2012 too was Live Light dissolved. So now we were inviting in Oregon Energy Trust trade allies, and individuals had to find that trade ally and bring them in. So we didn't have one contractor to really administer the project any longer too. So that kind of disenfranchised a few folks.
Great, thanks. I'm gonna kind of mix and match with questions in the chat just to mix it up. There is one quick question I can give a clarification. Does Oregon have a feed-in tariff right now? A feed-in tariff is a type of incentive. For example, it was the type of incentive that Germany used to get to their position of the greatest solar adoption of any country per capita in the world right now. So it's a very effective type of incentive. We do not have a feed-in tariff right now. Another question from the chat, are you encouraging heat pumps?
Oh, heat pumps are great, especially ductless heat pumps. They have over 300% efficiency. They'll heat, they'll cool. You have no duct loss. They don't have any backup heat, so they work great. But they're low temperature heat pumps that work. Well, check the website and look for a cold weather heat, ductless heat pump. But they're just amazing too. If you have an older gas furnace, or add the ductless heat pump and just use the gas furnace for when it gets super, super, super cold. You'll love it. And there are incentives if you're currently using electric heat, I think.
Great. Steve asks, is there any help from Pendleton specifically for homeowners to get solar in 2022?
Specifically from the city, we would still offer that bridging loan, but with the incentives the way they are now, if you do need that, we would provide that to you and you would pay the installer and pay us back. But we would still have it structured the same way, but there is no residential energy tax credit structure like it was when we originated the loan. But the loan payback would still be on that basis, $4,500 the first year and $1,500 each year thereafter for 3 years. Nobody's taking us up on it because solar's come down so much that it doesn't cost a lot to get into putting in the solar systems these days.
Great. A couple of questions here from Charles. First, what percentage of Pendleton's residential structures now have solar? I don't know if you have that statistic offhand. And then maybe I'll read the second one if you just want to hit that one first.
And this was total structures by Charles?
Yeah, I think percentage of structures of residential.
Less than 2%. Oh, residential, then it's about less than 3%.
So
on residential.
Yeah, lots of adoption, but still lots of the way to go, right?
Yes.
So how are community solar sites selected is his second question. And I'm happy to weigh in there a little bit myself.
Yeah, I know for Pendleton, Sunthirst is a installer, and they're the ones that are, the owner of that business took the lead and went after sites and coordinated purchase agreements for those sites with the property owners and went through all of the planning and permitting processes to make those sites valid. So this particular installer is using the program to help cover both his costs and providing the power, and then also with the incentives to homeowners. So that's the basis that I understand with 4 sites around our area. Zach?
Yeah. In general, I'd say that the question of community solar is more on the flavor of, there's 3 basic buckets of market types for solar. There's residential, commercial / industrial, and utility scale. And the way it's regulated is pretty different between commercial, residential, and utility scale. And community solar is kind of like a special case, you could say, of that utility scale, and it's actually regulated even with its own rules. And so it's highly specific. There's a specific interconnection process. Usually projects take quite a while to get off the ground and meet all of their site requirements. So it's not something that you have to do though to subscribe. So that's the great thing, is you can be a homeowner, you can be a renter, and it's fairly easy to go and get a subscription, cover your energy costs with community solar from a project that's already been built. And then,
yeah, if I could just jump in, Karen just sent a note in the chat about resources to check out ductless heat pumps. So if whoever asked that question, or anybody else interested, if you check the chat. And Karen's phone number is on the screen too, so feel free.
yeah, great. Thank you, Karen, for dropping those in there. And then last question here, and then I guess we can jump off. Just a clarification, what is RARE? What does that stand for again?
Yeah, it's part of the AmeriCorps program at University of Oregon. It stands for Resource Assistance for Rural Environments. So they typically have about 25 participants each year, and communities in the rural areas can apply. A lot of these students are entering the master's program for planning, whether it's city type planning, zoning, or parks type planning. It just gives them the ability to see. The goal of the program is to give them some real world experience before they enter a 2-year master's program. So they go out and live in a community for a year. They don't make a whole lot of money, but they work for that community and do a lot of public outreach and community projects. The other goal is that they leave a sustainable program in place for that community that can continue for generations to come. So it's a fabulous program if you're in a rural community to look more into that AmeriCorps program through the University of Oregon.
It's also a fabulous program for the intern, because they come in and they build their own work plan. So they're doing something they're interested and care about. And it's a huge step up for application to a master's program or maybe a job. Most of the RAREs I know are working with department heads. It is not an entry level filing sort of internship. It's come in and roll up your sleeves and do something really meaningful. So, and you can find out more if you just Google RARE University of Oregon, and you'll get a hold of a guy named Titus Tumelson. So,
yes, and working with Titus is one of our previous RARE participants, Aniko. So you will talk to either Titus or you'll talk to Aniko. Great program. And I would like to say, we mentioned Lee Jorgensen earlier. Solarize was not on his list of programs or projects for the city of Pendleton when he started here. He came up with that on his own, and we adjusted to that and moved. It was fabulous, fabulous.
Yeah, that project was a great launch pad for him for what he decided to do next.
Yeah,
that's great. Well, thank you so much, Bob and Susan. It's really great to have you here and to learn everything that Pendleton's accomplished, and hopefully it inspires other communities to take leadership in this way. So this is being recorded, so you will get an email as a follow-up. And so check into that. Feel free to reach out also with any questions. And of course, if you didn't get a chance to jot down this contact info, I can also pass that to you. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Yep. I want to thank my daughter for watching. She just typed in excellent presentation.
Thank you all. Have a nice evening.